My fiancée was laughing on the phone with her friend and said, "I'm only interested in his money, not him. I'm never going to marry him." That day, I came home unexpectedly to surprise her because we were supposed to go on a trip in 2 days. But she ended up surprising me instead. I quietly walked out of the house, and then I walked out of her life too. I'm 29, and I guess you could say I'm someone who works with numbers for a living. Nothing glamorous, but steady. 3 years ago, I met Claire at a coffee shop. I was sitting with my laptop. She asked if the seat across from me was taken, and that was it. She was beautiful in that effortless way. No makeup that morning, hair in a ponytail, wearing one of those oversized sweaters. We talked for 3 hours and completely lost track of time. The barista had to tell us they were closing. For the first year, everything felt like a movie. She laughed at my stupid jokes. I learned every detail about her life, and I genuinely believed we had something rare. She was a graphic designer, worked from home mostly, always making comments about wanting stability and a partner who had his life together. I had that. I was climbing steadily in my career, made decent money, and honestly, I thought I was building something real with her. In year 2, she started dropping hints about marriage. I wasn't opposed. I loved her, or I thought I did. I proposed last year with a 1.2-carat diamond ring. Nothing outrageous, but solid. She cried when I asked her. Said yes without hesitation. We set a date for next spring. My parents were thrilled. Her family seemed fine with it, though her mother gave me this weird look I could never quite place. The weird part started about 6 months ago. She'd become more interested in my paychecks, my investment portfolio, whether I was planning to take a promotion. I'd mention a work opportunity, and she'd immediately ask about the salary increase. At first I thought it was just normal couple stuff. You want to know about your partner's future, right? But then it got more specific. She'd ask about my life insurance policy, whether I had a will, how much was in my 401k, if I owned the apartment outright, or if I was still paying the mortgage. I mentioned something casually to my buddy Derek about it over beers one night, and he just went quiet. He said, "Man, does she talk about your money a lot?" I brushed it off, told him he was paranoid. Derek and I have been friends since college, and he'd been skeptical of Claire from the start, but I figured that was just him being overprotective. I didn't want to believe there was anything to worry about. 2 weeks ago, I was having a rough day at work. I'd made an error on a major spreadsheet that cost us about 40 grand in miscalculations, and my boss reamed me out pretty good. I left early, didn't even text Claire. I just wanted to come home, have a beer, watch something mindless. It was around 3 p.m. on a Thursday. I used my key to open the apartment door, and that's when I heard her voice from the living room. She was on FaceTime with someone, and she was laughing. That bright, infectious laugh she does. The one I thought was just for me. "No, I'm serious," she was saying. "I'm only interested in his money, not him. I'm never going to marry him." I froze. I was still in the entryway, and I could see her sitting on the couch through the open arch. Her phone was propped up, probably against a pillow. "He's becoming such a bore," she continued. "Like, he tries so hard, but he's just boring. The only reason I'm sticking around is because he makes good money and he's stupid enough to believe I actually care about him." My stomach dropped. It wasn't just a sick feeling. It was something more visceral, like someone had reached into my chest and was twisting everything inside. The engagement was perfect, honestly. He spent all that money on the ring. He's already talking about how much he's saving for the wedding. I'm going to milk this for as long as I can. Maybe I'll actually marry him, get half of everything in the divorce. He's the type who'd probably pay me off just to make it go away. She was laughing, actually laughing while she was saying this. I don't remember deciding to move, but suddenly I was walking back toward the door. My keys were still in my hand. I didn't slam it or make any noise. I just left, quietly, like I was a ghost leaving my own life. I sat in my car for probably 20 minutes. I couldn't think straight. I couldn't drive. My hands were shaking, and I kept replaying that conversation in my head, searching for any interpretation where this wasn't what I thought it was. But there wasn't one. She'd said it clearly. She'd said it casually, like she was gossiping about a celebrity, not about the person who loved her and had planned to spend his life with her. I drove to Derek's place instead of going back home. When I got there, he took one look at me and didn't ask questions. He just opened a bottle of whiskey. I told him what I heard, word for word as much as I could remember. He didn't say, "I told you so," which I appreciated, but I could see it written all over his face. Update: when I didn't go home that night. I crashed on Derek's couch, and called in sick to work the next day. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Claire had texted me 6 times asking where I was, if everything was okay. Why wasn't I responding? The normalcy of those messages made everything worse. She was asking like she cared, like she wasn't currently planning to divorce me and take half of everything I'd worked for. By Saturday morning, I needed a plan. Revenge, at first, seemed like the natural conclusion. I fantasized about showing up at her friend's place, the one she'd been talking to, and playing the recording. Except I hadn't recorded anything. I'd heard it, but I had no proof. And that was the trap, wasn't it? She'd said everything to a friend on FaceTime, behind closed doors, where I just happened to catch her. Derek said I could crash at his place as long as I needed, but I knew I had to go back to the apartment eventually. I had to face her. I had to know exactly what was going on and whether I'd completely misread the person I'd been planning to marry. I went back on Sunday afternoon. She answered the door in a tank top and shorts, and her expression went through this weird transition. Relief, then confusion, then anger. "Where the hell have you been?" she demanded. "Your phone's been off. I've been worried sick." I watched her face as she said it, and it was so convincing. The concern looked real. Her hand was on her hip, and her eyes were doing that worried thing she does. "We need to talk," I said. I wasn't yelling. I was being disturbingly calm, which I think scared her more. "About what?" She turned away and walked into the living room, and I followed. This was the room where she'd been sitting on the couch. This was where she'd said those words. I'd prepared what I was going to say, but now that I was here, I couldn't do it the way I'd planned. I just asked her directly, "What did you say to your friend on Thursday afternoon?" She went very still. Her back was to me, but I could see her shoulders tense. "What do you mean?" Her voice had changed. It was smaller now. "Thursday, 3 o'clock. You were on FaceTime. What did you tell her about me?" She turned around, and now there was panic in her eyes. You were listening? What did you say?" She sat down slowly on the edge of the couch. Okay, look. You have to understand, don't." I held up my hand. "Don't explain. Don't rationalize. Just tell me if you meant it." "If I meant what?" "That you're not going to marry me. That I'm boring. That you're only interested in my money." She looked at me for a long moment, and I watched her brain work. I watched her decide whether to lie or tell the truth. And that moment, that decision point, told me everything I needed to know. Because she was deciding based on whether I could prove she'd said it, not on whether it was true. "That's not what I meant," she said finally. It was girl talk. Sarah was pushing me to, "Were you lying then? Or are you lying now?" "I'm not lying. That came out wrong. I was frustrated with you about something, and I vented." "Frustrated about what?" She stood up and started walking around. "About the fact that you don't do anything. You work, you come home, we watch TV. You're not spontaneous. You're not exciting. You just exist." "So the money thing?" That was Sarah. She was saying I should be smarter about this, that I should think about my future. And I was just playing along. I wasn't serious. But her tone had shifted. She wasn't apologizing anymore. She was getting defensive, which somehow made it worse because I knew defensive meant trapped, and trapped meant the original truth was worse than what she'd admitted. "I want you to leave," I said. "I'm going to take a few days, and then you're going to get your things out of this apartment." "What?" "Wait, you can't." "I can, and I am." She tried to follow me into the bedroom as I started grabbing things, a suitcase from the closet, some clothes. "Please, we can work this out." I didn't mean any of it the way it sounded. You know me better than that. But I didn't know her. That was the realization that hit me hardest. I didn't know her at all. Update 2: I stayed at Derek's for 5 days. I needed to think, to talk to a lawyer, to figure out how to untangle this mess. Derek's sister is a family law attorney, and she told me that without proof of her actual intent to defraud me, I didn't have much legal recourse. But she advised me to protect my assets and to document everything going forward. Claire called constantly. She sent texts apologizing, saying she'd been under stress, that she had anxiety, that she needed to see a therapist. She said the words I guess people say in these situations, that she loved me, that everything she felt for me was real, that she was just scared. And you know what the worst part was? I almost believed her the first time she said it. That's the dangerous thing about loving someone. Your brain doesn't want to accept the truth because accepting it means accepting that you're an idiot. On the 6th day, she texted me that she was ready to move out. She asked me to come home to help her pack, to talk things through one more time. I agreed because I wanted this to be done, and I wanted to see if maybe I'd overreacted, if maybe there was something salvageable here. I was wrong. When I got to the apartment, she had been going through things. Not packing, going through. She had my laptop open on the coffee table, and she was scrolling through what looked like my banking app. When she saw me, she quickly closed it, but I'd seen enough. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Nothing. I wanted to see if we could work out a fair way to split things." By looking at my bank account without permission, she didn't respond immediately. She was thinking, calculating again. "I thought we could be mature about this." "Mature? You were literally planning to divorce me and take half of everything." "I wasn't planning anything. I was just exploring options." The coldness of that statement hit differently than the original phone call had. The phone call was a betrayal, but this was intentional. This was her, calm and calculated, deciding to go through my private financial information and figure out how much she could take from me. "I think you should leave today," I said. "I'll pay for a month in a hotel or an Airbnb. I'll give you that. But I want you out." She tried a different approach then. She got angry. "You're throwing away 3 years over one stupid conversation? Over me venting to my friend? That's insane. You're being insane. You were also going through my banking information without my permission. So no, I'm not being insane. That was nothing. I was just curious. About my money. Which is exactly what this has always been about." She cried then. Real tears, I think, but I couldn't tell anymore if anything was real or performance. She said she'd made a mistake, that she didn't mean any of it, that she needed me. And I just felt nothing. That was the scariest part. I didn't feel anger anymore. I just felt tired and empty. I helped her pack because I wanted it done, and by that evening, she was in a hotel 3 miles away. She kept saying it was temporary, that we'd get back together once I calmed down. I didn't respond. Update 3: the next 2 weeks were the bureaucratic nightmare of ending a relationship. I called the wedding venue and canceled. I sent emails to my family explaining that the wedding was off, but I didn't give details. They called asking questions. My mother cried. My father told me I needed to fix it. I didn't explain because I couldn't. The shame of having been that stupid, that blind, it was overwhelming. I also started protecting my assets. I had a will written up, named Derek as beneficiary for everything except what I left to my parents. I transferred my more significant savings to an account in my name only. I did everything the lawyer suggested. Claire's lawyer called me 2 weeks after she moved out. Her lawyer. I didn't even know she'd hired one until then. Apparently, she was demanding half of the apartment, half of my investment portfolio, and alimony because she'd sacrificed her career to support my emotional needs. That was the phrase they used. Sacrificed her career. She'd never sacrificed anything. She worked from home doing graphic design, made her own schedule, and I'd never asked her to do anything differently. If anything, I'd encouraged her to take more projects. My lawyer filed a response, and things got ugly quickly. Claire started telling people stories. She told her family that I was abusive, which I wasn't. She told our mutual friends that I'd forced her into the engagement, which I hadn't. One of those mutual friends reached out to me directly and told me what she was saying, which is when I realized she was going to weaponize this entire situation. Derek told me I needed to stop checking her Instagram and her public posts, but I couldn't help it. She was posting throwback photos of us, with captions like, "Love this version of my life," and "Miss the good times." People were commenting their support, telling her to stay strong, that she'd find someone better. 3 weeks after we split, she called me. Not to reconcile, but to offer a deal. She said if I gave her a lump sum payment of $50,000, she'd sign off on everything and we'd be done. No lawyer fees, no court dates, just clean break. I told her no. My lawyer advised me to decline anyway. Taking that deal could be seen as me admitting fault or that I had something to hide. Final update: here we are, 4 months later, and the situation is still ongoing, though we're close to resolution. She's agreed to accept $30,000, which she'll get to split with her lawyer. I'm getting the apartment and most of my assets, which feels like the definition of winning while still losing. I've kept every email, every text, every piece of communication. My lawyer has made it clear that if this goes to court, the judge will not look kindly on someone who tried to marry under false pretenses and then weaponize the system to extract money. Claire's moved on. She's dating some other guy already. I know this because Derek told me he saw them together, and also because she posted about him on Instagram. Something about finally finding someone who gets me. I don't feel jealous anymore. I mostly just feel sorry for him, though I know that's not my responsibility. I've learned some things through this process. I've learned that love isn't enough if it's not mutual and real. I've learned that people can seem like one thing for years and actually be something completely different. I've learned that you can be smart about most things and completely stupid about one person. I've learned that walking away sometimes takes more strength than staying. I'm back in therapy now, something Derek recommended. My therapist keeps saying I need to focus on healing and not on what Claire did or didn't do. That's easier said than done. Every time I think I'm moving forward, I'll hear a song we used to listen to, or I'll see someone wearing a perfume that smells like hers, and I'm right back there in my car outside the apartment, my hands shaking, my world reshuffling. But I'm here. I'm alive. I didn't marry her, and that's something. In another timeline, I married her anyway, ignored that phone call, and spent the next 10 years of my life married to someone who was actively planning my financial destruction. So in a weird way, that phone call was the best worst thing that ever happened to me. I don't know if I'll trust anyone again the way I trusted her. I don't know if I want to, but I'm working on it. Some days are better than others. Edit 1. I want to clarify something a lot of people have asked. Yes, I did try to reconcile at first because I wasn't thinking clearly. I was in shock. It wasn't until the banking thing and the lawyer showing up that I realized this wasn't just a betrayal. It was premeditated. Edit 2. To the people saying I should have recorded her, I get it, but I wasn't thinking about legal protection in that moment. I was just hurt. My instinct was to leave, not to build a case. I should have been smarter, but I wasn't. Edit 3. The wedding deposit was non-refundable, so that was $5,000 down the drain. The venue kept trying to convince me to move the date instead of canceling, but there was no way I was doing that.